So tonight we'll discuss a little bit about the Mitzvah of Milah, circumcision, and specifically Milah on Shabbos. Are there any ramifications of doing a Milah on Shabbos? In other words, we know the Torah tells us, "U'Yom Hashmini Yimo B'Sar Alaso." On the 8th day, you're commanded in the Mitzvah of Milah. So, are there any exceptions to the rule? So obviously we know if a baby is sick and it's dangerous to do the circumcision, so of course you don't do the circumcision. You wait until the baby gets better, and the first possible opportunity you do the milah. But the halacha is only a milah bizmana is done on Shabbos. Only if it's the 8th day on Shabbos, then you do the milah. But if it's a milah shelo bizmana, if it's a milah on day 10, 11, 12, etc., you don't do the milah on Shabbos. That we know. But is there any time where there's a day 8 baby on Shabbos and healthy that you would not do a bris milah? So let's see. So the Gemara tells us in Shabbos, Kuf Lamed Hey Amid Aleph, the Gemara tells us, Amar Rav Asi. Rav Asi says, Kol she'imo tmei leda, any newborn whose mother becomes tamei because of childbirth, nimo l'shmona. So then you do the circumcision on day 8. V'kol she'enimo tmei leda, ein nimo l'shmona. If a newborn mother does not become tamei at childbirth, you don't do the milah on day 8. How do we know this? What's the difference if a woman becomes tamei or not through childbirth? So the Gemara tells us, Shenemar, Isha ki zazriya v'yolda zacha v'tama u'layom hashmini yino b'sar alaso. The pasuk links circumcision on the 8th day with the mother becoming tamei. So the Gemara says, only someone who is imo tmei leda. Who is a woman who does not become tamei leda? So Rashi gives us two. We're going to focus on one. But Rashi says, Kagon yotzi doven, a C-section baby, a cesarean section. We'll see the Gemara in Nida tells us that she doesn't become tamei. And also, Nachrish Yolda, a non-Jewish woman who gives birth, and then she converts. So the halacha of Thu May doesn't apply to a non-Jew, only to a Jew. So it's another case. But we're going to focus on the C-section. On the cesarean section, the Gemara says the woman, even though Bisman Hazeh might not be true anymore, but Bisman HaGemara, a woman did not become tamei when she had a C-section baby. And therefore, you wouldn't do the bris on the 8th day. Or we'll see if when you do the bris. So, because the Torah connects a woman becoming tamei on day 8. So the Gemara asks, is this true that if a woman doesn't become tamei leda, if a woman doesn't become defiled at childbirth, you don't do the bris on day 8? The earlier generations from Avraham Avinu until Matan Torah, they disproved this because she'enimo tmei leda, there was no halachas of Tuma before Matan Torah. V'nimo l'shmona, and yet they did the milah on day 8. So how could Rav Asi say that only if the mother becomes tamei is the circumcision on day 8? So Rav Asi, Amar Amalei, Rav Asi said to Abaye, Nitna Torah v'nischadsha halacha. Once the Torah was given at Har Sinai, v'nischadsha halacha, a new law went into effect. It used to be day 8 all the time. But once the Torah was given, day 8 was limited to only to a child whose mother became tamei at birth. So that's the Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Lamed Hey Amid Aleph, saying, quoting Rav Asi, that only a woman who becomes Tamei at birth is the Milah on day 8, because that's the juxtaposition of the Pasuk. Isha Kisa Azvila Yalda Zacha V'Tama U'Vayom HaShmini, the implications being that if a woman does not become Tamei at childbirth, there is no Chiyuv of a day 8 baby. And if there's no Chiyuv of day 8, so then the Chiyuv would be day 1. You have no reason to wait to day 8. You'd have an obligation to do a Milah, and you'd have to do it day 1. So that's a discussion, halacha l'maisa, regarding C-section babies, cesarean section babies. The halacha is, it's a sveika dedina how we paskin, whether a C-section baby gets gemalt on day 1 or on day 8. So the minhag is, we do it on day 8, because if it's day 8 and we do it day 1, so then it might not be good then. Or it wouldn't be good because you did the Milah before the Zman, like the simple reading of the Shulchan Aruch, Mol Toches, or you Mol Balayla, you do a Milah at night, you do a Milah before day 8, it's no good, because it's not the proper Zman. So they point out here as well, so a C-section baby, if the Zman is day 1, so if you do it day 8, it's still good. But if the Zman is day 8 and you do it day 1, it's a no-go. So therefore, we'll machmer to sveika dedina, we wait to day 8 to do a C-section baby. The shaila is, what about if a C-section baby is born on Shabbos? You have the Milah on Shabbos the following week. Then what? Can you do a Milah on a healthy day 8 baby? The only issue is the baby was born C-section. So that's what the post can bring down. It's a case of a suffix Milah b'zmana. We know the luck is a Milah b'zmana you do on day 8. A Milah shalom b'zmana you cannot do day 8 on Shabbos. So to a suffix Milah shalom b'zmana, because perhaps really it's day 1 and it's not day 8, it's a Milah shalom b'zmana. So therefore, the luck is we wait for day 8 for a C-section baby, but if day 8 falls out on Shabbos, we do not do a C-section baby on Shabbos. We wait until day 9. That is the minhag ha'olam. However, the poskim later on raise a new question. That's the Gemara already about C-section. The Gemara in Nida, that a C-section baby doesn't become Tamei Leda, and therefore perhaps they're not chayav to do it on day 8, hence on Shabbos we wait. What about a more modern case? In fact, the question of in vitro fertilization, that was first accomplished about 40 years ago, and artificial insemination was done about in 1790. First time it was done in London in 1790. Both of these procedures, in vitro fertilization, artificial insemination, were not known during the time of the Gemara. Nevertheless, it's an interesting Gemara in Chagiga. Yud Dalet Amud Beis has an interesting question on whether a Kohen Gadol, a high priest, is permitted to marry a pregnant virgin. Yes, can a Kohen Gadol marry a pregnant virgin? Because a Kohen Gadol has to marry a virgin. But this virgin happens to be pregnant. How could that be? A pregnant virgin, isn't that an oxymoron? So the Gemara considers the possibility that a woman might have become pregnant bathing in the same water right after a man bathed there. And in fact, there's a midrashic tradition that the daughter of Yirmiyahu, that Ben Sira was conceived by the daughter of Yirmiyahu, and the child's father was Yirmiyahu himself. So we see already the Gemara entertaining the issue of perhaps artificial insemination, whichever you want to call it, but the bathhouse and becoming pregnant, bathhouse insemination. So that's the Gemara regarding Kohen Gadol. However, Rabbi Hananel, one of the Rishonim, has a different girsa, has a different manuscript. And he says the Gemara's question is regarding a child born in bathhouse insemination. Does that child, does the mother have the laws of tumas leida or not? When there's a miraculous birth or an unnatural birth, do the laws of tuma apply? And that's so. And the Rabbi Hananel learns the issue. He says the Gemara's question is regarding, can you do a bris milah on day 8? If a woman has a bathhouse insemination or artificial insemination, perhaps in vitro fertilization, all the above, does she become tummy at birth? And the application of that is, can they go ahead and do the milah on Shabbos? So Rabbi Hananel learns that a woman born of this type of child, bathhouse insemination, she does not become tummy, hence you cannot do the bris on day 8. And that's the Gemara, that's the juxtaposition in Parashas Tazria, Isha ki Tazria v'yolda zachar. So that's how he learns the Gemara. And in fact, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he quotes this Rabbi Hananel, who says that a woman who's conceived by bathhouse insemination cannot do a bris milah on Shabbos. So the issue is like this: what's pshat when in Rabbi Hananel? So the Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, because Rabbi Hananel quotes two pshatim. The first pshat is, since the conception occurred miraculously, hence a woman does not become tummy. That's one explanation. Or is it the pshat that since the conception occurred in an unconventional manner, that's why she doesn't become tummy? So Rabbi Hananel goes with the second explanation, that since it was done in an unconventional manner, she didn't become pregnant in the normal way, through bia, therefore, that's what the Gemara Chagiga is telling me, the woman does not become tummy. So according to the Rav Shlomo Zalman says, according to the second version of Rabbi Hananel, a woman who is artificially inseminated would not have the laws of Tuma, and therefore one should not perform the mitzvah of bris milah on Shabbos, because we said if a woman doesn't become tummy at birth, she might not be chayav on day 8 of the bris milah. And therefore, Shlomo Zalman is no to machmir in artificial insemination, bathhouse insemination, and Rav Bleich discusses the issue as well in the Tradition article in summer 2001. He also talks about it, and he thinks also one should be machmir on an artificial insemination, on an in vitro, and in these modern technologies. Perhaps it's like Rabbi Hananel's second version, and therefore it's considered not the natural means, and hence a woman does not become tamei, and therefore she won't be able to do a bris day 8 on Shabbos. And that's Rav Hershel Schachter as well, and I think Rabbi Willig as well, that machmir for this opinion of Rabbi Hananel that you would not do the bris on Shabbos if they were born that way. Again, it's a tremendous jump. The Gemara in Shabbos or the Gemara in Nida is a C-section baby. The woman physically is coming out a different way. Rabbi Hananel has a bigger chiddush that even though the birth is the natural way, whether it's bathhouse insemination or artificial insemination, the birth is happening natural, but the conception was done unnaturally or miraculously. So Rabbi Hananel has a chiddush that this also, a woman will not become tamei either. Rabbi Hananel is the only one who has this girsa. Rashi and others don't have this case. The only one who discusses this shaila is Rabbi Hanan, no one else. So therefore Rabbi feels that since he's the only one to discuss it, therefore his conclusion is to be machmar. Avaji Yosef in the Yalki Yosef in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, he rules that one may perform a bris milah on Shabbos on a baby that was conceived by artificial insemination or in vitro. Perhaps he says, since Rabbi Hanan is the only one who says it, presumably if it was a big kiddush like this, others would have said it as well. And since no one says you can't do it, he's saying that we don't accept Rabbi Hanan halacha, and perhaps that's why Avaji Yosef is Meiko. So according to Rav Shlomo Zalman, Rav Bleich, Rav Shechter, Rav Will all seem to be noted to be machmir, because it's an issue of doing it on day 8, but when it comes to a possible Chilul Shabbos, they say no. And Rabbi Yosef isn't that concerned with Rabbeinu Hananel, and perhaps he's concerned with the Milah Bizmana. We don't push off a Milah. We even Zrizim Akdim Lamitzvahs, we try to do as early as possible. And Avaji Yosef, perhaps with Sfardim, maybe the minig is that they would do the bris milah. Again, so, and Rabbi points out, you don't have to, it's no one's business to tell anyone you were artificially inseminated or in vitro, and therefore he says you could just make up a white lie like telling them it was a C-section baby or the baby's jaundice. That's permitted. So that's the psak of many poskim based on a Rabbi Chanel Shita that he turns to Gemara about a Kohen Gadol marrying a pregnant woman. He has the manuscript about it's connected to a woman becoming Tamei, a miraculous birth. And therefore, even though by C-section the birth is different, there's much more room to discuss. His chiddush is even if the conception is done in an unnatural or miraculous fashion, bathhouse insemination, artificial insemination, or in vitro, they claim Rav Shechter, Rav Black, and Rav Auerbach are all think one should be machmir and not have the bris on Shabbos in all these cases. Another famous question regarding Milah on Shabbos is why do we do the Milah on Shabbos? If we know, we have a famous principle, Gzeira D'Rabba. We know when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, or Tzukkas falls out on Shabbos, we say no shofar today, no Daled Minim today. So how come when it comes to those mitzvahs, biblical mitzvahs, shofar, lulav, we say Gzeira D'Rabba, we're afraid you might come to carry, and therefore we say no mitzvah. Why don't we say the same thing by bris milah? We're afraid you're going to come carry the knife, etc. Why don't we do a Gzeira D'Rabba? So some point out that because milah is an aseh sheyesh bo kares. Milah is one of two positive commandments. The other we don't have today, the Karban Pesach. Failure to perform these mitzvahs warrant a chiyuv kares, a very serious prohibition. But shofar and lulav, I say just in parentheses, you're just mavatel a mitzvah aseh, and therefore we're not as concerned, and therefore we could tell you not to do it. But when it comes to something kares, we don't want to push off. Others point out, like the Taz, that the Gemara tells us in Yavamas, Yesh koach b'yad chachamim la'akor dvar Torah v'shevi al taseh. The Chacham have the ability to tell us not to do mitzvahs by telling us not to do it, by being passive. So the Torah tells us to blow shofar. The rabbis have the ability to tell us not to blow shofar or not to shake lulav. However, b'kum ba'aseh, but they can't actively, if you're having a Mac attack, they can't actively tell you to go and eat McDonald's. However, the Mefarshim point out, one of the limitations to this is if it's Mefurish Fakra. If the Torah itself tells me that I could do it, then the Chachamim can't come out. So for instance, if we had a pasuk in the Chumash telling me that when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, we blow shofar, so then the Chachamim can stop us. So that's what the Taz writes, and others based on the Yud Gimel Midos, Uvayom Afilu B'Shabbos, V'Yom HaShmini. Afilu B'Shabbos, we have an equivalent pasuk that tells us what the post can consider mafurish b'kra, and therefore the Chachamim don't have a right to tell us not to do it. And therefore, by Milah is mafurish b'kra, so we don't apply Gzeira D'Rabba. Or others point out, when it comes to shofar, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, it is really a Sfeika D'Yoma. We don't know exactly what day it is, especially by Sukkot. So therefore, we could be machmir. But by Milah, it's nothing to do with the calendar. You count 8 days, so that's B'Torah's Vadai, so therefore we were in machmir. So different explanations why. The luck is, we don't blow shofar on Shabbos or shake lulav on Shabbos, and we do circumcision. That's a given. Why don't we apply Gzeira D'Rabba? Either because by Milah Zavada you just count the 8 days, but by the other Yom Tov maybe it's a suffix. You have the Taz that because it's Mefurish B'Kra. Since it says specifically by Milah on Shabbos you do on day 8, so therefore there's nothing to talk about. But they don't write explicitly not to blow shofar on Shabbos. And then you have the other one, the Rosh Hashanah, that Milah is a mitzvah aseh sheyesh bo kares. So therefore, it's a more severe, it only has the status of a lav. And therefore, the Chachamim didn't want to push off something which entails a chi of kares.